Somewhere on every big ship, there is a room with no music, no screens, and no bar chatter, and the whole point of it is that nobody talks. Then one voice arrives. Not angry, not drunk. Just loud, certain, and completely convinced the room needs to hear it. What follows is what happens when that voice meets a crew with a clipboard, a camera, and a price list. 1. For 40 minutes, a woman in Reno named Deanna watched a video call made up almost entirely of other people's faces. Strangers, all of them, face down with their eyes shut. Her cousin Vicky was doing the filming. Deanna also got the shed update. 11 inches over the fence line, and an association with opinions. At minute 9, she heard a second voice come in close and quiet, asking her cousin to take the call outside. Then Vicky at full strength, saying the staff here would not stop breaking her concentration. All of this was inside the thermal spa on day 6 of a Mexican Riviera sailing. That room is the quietest thing a ship sells. Cedar steam, warm tile, lighting so low you find your lounger by feel. Vicky came in wearing sunglasses indoors, at a volume built for calling somebody off a porch. Whatever part of her would never do this at her own gym stayed in long-term parking. 2 guests took their robes and left in slippers, which Vicky read as elbow room. Backing up for a better angle, she put a heel off the lip of the cold plunge and went into the knee. One foam sandal set off across the water like it had plans. She did not hang up. She told Deanna the ship was badly labeled. The call finally ended in the dry sauna. A hostess opened the door and found Vicky on the top bench with a party-sized bag of caramel popcorn, explaining that everybody in this spa had an attitude problem. Hot cedar does not give caramel back. The bench was stripped and re-oiled, and the sauna hung a maintenance sign until 2 the next afternoon. A ship only sells so many thermal passes a voyage, and all of them got adjusted. Vicky's folio put it in plainer language. Specialty cleaning, cedar, $200. 2. The gold foil crowns came through the door first at 7:10, 4 of them, over 4 matching lime green shirts. Behind them, in order of appearance, came the countdown. The Deck 11 wine room is a self-pour tasting room, which is a polite way of saying a library where the books are Italian reds. Soft light, low chairs, a wall of chilled taps that read your keycard and drop a 2-ounce taste into your glass. It exists so somebody can try a $90 bottle without buying one. Roxy, running a 50th birthday weekend for a friend, had not come to think about oak. She looked at that wall and saw a bank of arcade machines that paid out in wine. Slap the card, take a taste of something 2 decades old, make a noise you could see in the glassware. 3, 2, 1, every time. In the corner, a man with a real tasting notebook stopped writing and never started again. The wine steward came over early and explained the concept of a quiet room. Roxy's answer was to ask why a premium bar had no frozen drink machine. They gave him 4 minutes out of respect. Then the glasses started hitting the counter hard enough to make the bartender flinch on a schedule. Then Roxy decided 2 ounces was an insult to her time. She wedged 1 glass under 3 spouts at once and told the room she had invented the Deck 11 special. The glass filled, kept filling, and went sideways. 2 of the 3 spouts had no opinion about where the glass had gone. The wall took a red light and the whole bank locked, which cost the room's other 11 guests their taps. The bar manager walked all 4 out with the dispenser still dripping into its tray. Nobody reads the little card by the taps. The wall meters by the ounce, and an abandoned pour still bills as a pour. The log at guest services showed 31 across 4 cards in 19 minutes. $412, plus $60 to flush and re-gas the drowned unit. The room came off all 4 keycards for the rest of the sailing. The taps would not read them again. 3. At 9:15, the quiet bar on Deck 4 had about 11 minutes left. Nobody knew that yet. including Marcy and Dale from outside Spokane, unpacking a canvas roll of dominoes onto a glass table. The room is built like the club car of an old train. Dark wood, low green lamps, oxblood leather benches, a pianist working through something slow. Dominoes on glass, it turns out, sound like a gavel. Dale narrated his own strategy to a room of people who came there specifically to hear no one. Marcy groaned like a felled tree every time she drew from the boneyard. The groans got louder as the score got closer, because nobody has ever been quietly ahead. A bartender crossed the room with a tray of coupes and asked them politely to bring it down. Dale held a double blank an inch from the man's nose and said the round was still live. Minute 11. Marcy slammed the winning tile down hard enough to make the table jump. Dale's $22 fig and rye went straight over, into the seam of the leather bench and down his own trouser leg. He stood up looking like he'd lost a fight with a dessert. The bar manager walked them out while Dale complained the room had no energy in it. Sugar understitching does not wipe off. The bench came out and went to the ship's upholstery shop. Damage on that scale gets priced after the voyage by the hotel director's office. 9 weeks later, an envelope reached Spokane. $640. One line, banquet section, deck 4. 4. At 20 to 7, the observation bar was full and the light was going orange over the water. A man walked to the exact center of the room and cleared his throat like a tenor. Then he informed roughly 40 strangers that a Commodore Club member required a window seat. This is Wayne, retired office furniture sales manager from a town outside Milwaukee. He wore his loyalty card on a cord around his neck, the way other men wear a medal. Cruise lines print those cards to reward people who keep booking. A certain kind of passenger reads them as a rank. Nobody moved. 40 adults developed a sudden interest in their own drinks, and one woman began reading a cocktail menu she had already ordered from. So Wayne selected a target. 2 women in their 50s at the corner window. Bowl of olives, bottle of white in a cooler. Best seats in the room. He crossed the floor and set his keycard down on their table with a crack. Then he informed them he had 587 nights with this company across 22 years. He delivered the number like a batting average he had been saving all season. They laughed politely on the assumption that this was some kind of onboard entertainment bit. That was the worst possible move. Wayne took it as a heckle. He started reciting his tier benefits out loud from memory, leaning hard on the words priority seating. In the actual terms and conditions, that means boarding lines and dining times. It has never once meant removing 2 women from a bar. The bar staff stopped pretending to polish glasses and just watched. Then Wayne reached over and began sliding their untouched glasses onto a passing waiter's tray to clear space for his camera and tripod. The waiter froze with the tray at chest height, now holding 2 drinks that belonged to somebody else. When the manager came over, Wayne folded his arms and demanded that the staff captain be brought down to confirm his standing. The manager offered him a table, freeing up in 10 minutes. Wayne called that an insult to his history with the brand. The staff captain did not come down. 2 officers did. Wayne left the room in reverse, lanyard held over his head, promising to have both their names pulled off the crew list. Apparently, enough nights in the cheapest inside cabins comes with hiring power over an international workforce. Here is the part loyalty members never think about. The tier and the conduct file sit on the same profile. It is one record with 2 halves. At guest services that night, Wayne signed a 1-page acknowledgement of conduct. They would not switch his card back on for any bar on the ship until he did. The officer read him the last line before handing him the pen. Copy to the guest's loyalty account. 5. There is a request no cellist expects to receive mid-phrase. On day 5 of an Adriatic sailing, a man leaned across her music stand. Could she play the music they run over the sports highlight reels? Live. With dramatic chords every time his team got the ball back. He explained generously that nobody was really listening to her anyway, so this was an upgrade for the entire room. Her bow was still on the string. That was attempt number 3. Attempt number 1 came 40 minutes earlier. A waiter came over about the noise, and Randy slid a folded 50 across the table and asked whether the crew could put the game audio through the ceiling speakers. The waiter carried that back to the bar the way you carry something leaking. Attempt number 2 was structural. Randy and 3 friends from outside Nashville had arrived at 20 past 4 with the voltage of grown men cut off from their sports bar during a basketball tournament. The seating did not suit them. So he dragged 4 armchairs the weight of small refrigerators backward across the carpet into a huddle. 1 tablet sat in the middle, propped on an upturned ice bucket. On chair number 3, the front leg caught the metal threshold strip and stopped. Randy did not. He went over the arm, took the ice bucket down with him, and the whole arrangement landed in the 4 quietest seconds of the afternoon. He got up, said nothing about it, and went back to dragging. Then the game, at full tablet volume, 4 men shouting at a screen the size of a dinner plate every time a whistle blew. The panorama room on Deck 17 is the quietest space on the ship, and that is deliberate. It is the sort of thing you only notice when somebody breaks it. 24 passengers with paperbacks turned extremely polite, and polite is the loudest sound a room can make. Security finally arrived on a different complaint entirely. Randy was working his way down the starboard side, closing every motorized blind in the room because the afternoon sun was on his screen. Those blinds run off a panel behind the bar and get set for heat load, not for a man with a game on. Men who feel out of place in an expensive room do not go quiet. They move the furniture because rearranging a room is the fastest way to own it. All 4 went out through the doors. Randy stopped in the frame, pointed back at the silence, and announced that this was exactly why nobody over here understands defense. Lounge carpet cannot be spot repaired. The ship's carpenter cuts a patch from the vessel's own dye lot, and the seam stays visible for the rest of its working life. $780. Split 4 ways at $195 a man, itemized as guest-caused floor covering damage, Deck 17. Randy disputed it at guest services on the last morning. They turned the monitor around. The duty manager had photographed the tracks before the 4 of them were out of the room. 6. Command to pool group. Report on lounger count. Over. That went out at 11:20 in the morning at shouting volume into a handheld radio. About 9 seconds of static later, an answer came back. Vernon, there's nothing free out here. Over. That was Ray, his brother-in-law, transmitting from a deck chair. Vernon hit the table with the flat of his hand. Hold the position, Ray. Do not give up ground. Charlene is coming with towels. Over. All of this happened in the Sea View Lounge on Deck 9. Wraparound glass, carpet thick enough to swallow footsteps, a piano recording quiet enough to ignore for an hour. People go there to sit still and look at water. The view is the entertainment. That is the entire product. 30 of them lowered their books at the same time. One woman looked up at the ceiling, the way people do when they cannot believe a sound is happening indoors. The man responsible was Vernon, a retired air conditioning wholesaler from Alabama, with 9 relatives aboard and a job he had given himself. He called it family ops. He did not trust the daily program. He did not trust text messages. He had bought 4 long-range radios, the kind sold to roofing crews, and he had brought them on a holiday. Not 2, 4, with call signs. He had arrived in a khaki vest with 14 pockets, all of them loaded. He had cleared a low oak table and unfolded a deck plan the size of a tablecloth. Notepad on the left, radio standing upright in the middle like a trophy. Volume all the way up. Every press of the transmit button produced a shriek, then a wall of static that sounded like a refrigerator dying. A man in his 70s cleared his throat and asked very politely whether the radio could come down a little. Vernon aimed the antenna at him and explained that he was running family logistics. You cannot do that on a phone that might drop a call at sea. Here is what a holiday does to a certain kind of man. Take away his job, his schedule, and his list of people who need him by 4 o'clock, and his brain does not settle. It builds a replacement. It invents a role with a title, a chain of command, and a radio. Vernon's came with a vest. He stood up to transmit again, and the pocket he had loaded with spares let go. 18 batteries hit the carpet and rolled off under 9 different chairs. For about 40 seconds, the quietest room on the ship sounded like a dropped bag of marbles. He collected what he could reach on his knees and went straight back to broadcasting. When a waiter came over to have a word about the noise, Vernon did not argue with him. He recruited him. He put a finger on the deck plan and demanded to know exactly when the carving station was putting out the prime rib. He needed that number for the second group. The manager came, and then 2 officers, and Vernon was walked out for what the log later called a sustained disturbance. He asked on the way whether the lounge had a policy in writing. It does. He had broken most of it. This is the point where a normal man puts the radios in a drawer and orders a beer. Vernon decided he had been pushed out of his base and needed somewhere darker to work from. He found the main theater on Deck 3 during the 8 o'clock show. 900 people in the dark, watching a hand balancer work her way up a stack of wooden crates with no music at all. The whole room was breathing through its nose. This is a room where the crew tapes down anything that rattles. Vernon settled into the back corner, discovered his radio was on the wrong channel, and pressed scan. The balancer reached the top crate and went up onto one hand. And out of every speaker in a room built for 900 at a volume that moved the floor. Charlene, the frozen yogurt machine is down. Say again, no chocolate, over. Radios that strong are built to punch through a construction site, and they are not fussy about what else is on the air. What else was on the air in a dark theater was the wireless feed that runs the show. Scan had found it in under a second. The balancer came off her stack onto the mat, and the finale was finished. 900 people came up out of their seats looking for the source. A woman 2 rows ahead asked her husband whether that was part of it. Then the speakers answered her. "Vernon, put that radio down and go stand in the burger line." What followed was a full married argument about whether the deli moved faster than the grill, broadcast through the main sound system of a theater. The audio engineer worked the board like a man diffusing something. Security found him in the back row in the dark, still talking about the deli. He was, at that point, the only person in the theater still enjoying himself. All 4 radios went into the guest services safe with the chargers and the spare pack, against a property receipt he had to sign. The theater came off his card for the last 4 nights. The receipt listed 4 radios, 2 chargers, 1 battery pack, and 18 loose AA cells recovered from under the chairs on Deck 9. 7. From the corridor on Deck 6, it sounded like a dogfight. 6 men, in fact, barking in rhythm inside the ship's library. The library is done up like a country house study. Bookcases with brass rails, green reading lamps, wingback chairs you sink into, a glass case of old ship models by the door. 11 people were reading in there when it began, and none of them left, which is its own kind of stubbornness. One of them turned a page harder than necessary. That was the entire protest. 3 things happened to those 11 people in 20 minutes. The first was the furniture. At 20 to 4 on a sea day, Trent clapped twice and told his 5 people to move the chairs. He is a district manager for a commercial insurance group. 6 wingbacks dragged across the carpet into a circle, planted in the middle of the main walkway. 6 identical navy polos with the company mark stitched over the heart. Then, each man stood up in turn and shouted his 4th quarter renewal numbers at the ceiling. One man's number was so bad he shouted it twice, for emphasis. The others clapped for it. The second thing was the library host. She came over and asked whether they could bring it down. Trent gave her a smile with real wattage in it and handed her a company stress ball shaped like a little house. He promised they would be finished in 20 minutes. They were there for 50. The third thing came out of a backpack. A speaker, then a clip-on microphone, and then the chant. It was call and response. The response was the word more, and under it, 6 pairs of deck shoes hit the floor in time. The barking arrived somewhere around the 4th round. The glass on the ship model case moved. 4 separate passengers called guest services. When 2 officers walked in, Trent turned the microphone on the senior one and asked him to describe his best day at work in 1 word. He held it out and waited, like it was a real question. The officers did not play. The seminar was shut down and all 6 were walked out of the library. Trent was told in plain words that another organized shouting session would go on the record. He took that as a venue problem. He announced that they were moving the off-site. Next door, the Compass Lounge was 2 lots into the ship's art auction. 30-some passengers, free sparkling wine, lowlights, an auctioneer talking softly about the brushwork on 2 horses in fog. It is the sort of event where people whisper the word lovely. Nobody in there had raised a voice in an hour. The double doors opened and 6 men in matching polos came down the side aisle. 90 seconds later, Trent's paddle was up, and the horses were his at $1,400. He came out of his chair announcing that this is how you close, while 5 men high-fived across the seatbacks. He did not want the painting. He had told his men on the way in to bid on everything, on principle, as a live exercise in dominating a negotiation. Not one of them would have done it alone. Put 5 colleagues in the row beside you, and a man will do things in public he would never do in his own driveway. A group hands out permission that nobody in it has the authority to give. He outbid a woman in her 70s from Ottawa 4 times in a row, celebrating each one like a touchdown. She stopped bidding after the 4th. That was the point, apparently. The auctioneer started talking faster and looking at the doors between lots. Somebody's champagne sat untouched for the rest of the evening. Trent ran a Night Harbor print up to $3,200, sweating through the polo. $3,200 for a print because nobody in that room wanted to be the one who blinked at him. He did not look at the print once. The gavel came down and he won it. He walked to the podium and handed over a business card. Could he put it on the company account as a team-building expense? And did they take a purchase order? He asked it into the microphone, because nobody had taken the microphone off him. What Trent had walked into is not run by the cruise line. It is a concession, an outside company renting that room for the evening. The paddle you raise makes a contract with them, not with the ship. The ship gets a copy of every incident that happens inside their hour. Security had been tracking Trent since the library. They voided the bid at the podium before the paperwork printed. When the ship tied up in Cozumel the next morning, all 6 were on the gangway list with a note against their names. They spent the port day on board, watching the pier from deck 12. 8. Between 11 and midnight, one man delivered the same 90-second pitch 9 times to 9 people who had not asked. The 9th was a passenger with white eyebrows who had shut his eyes and committed fully. He got tapped on the arm anyway. Brody pulled up a chair and explained that the half-asleep brain is where the good deals get made. This was the cigar room on deck 5. Walnut panels, low club chairs, a fan you can hear, and a rule nobody prints anywhere. Say nothing to anyone. Brody was 29, from Austin, and introduced himself as a founder 3 times in 4 minutes. He carried an unlit cigar all evening, purely as a prop. He never lit it. He used it to point with, which in that room is about the same as wearing a hat in church. He worked the chairs clockwise, one at a time, and did not skip anybody. Cream cards with only his first name on them, handed over whether or not a hand came out. And a pitch for an app that rents out your driveway by the hour. His voice carried like a man ordering at a drive-thru. Nobody told him to stop, which he took as interest. It was 9 men calculating whether moving would make it worse. A silent room does something strange to the one person talking in it. He is the only one who thinks a conversation is happening. Then he stood in the middle of the floor with an offer. A round of anything for anybody who could explain to him what a bond ladder is. That brought the bartender out from behind the counter. 9 cigars burning. Not one taker. 2 officers arrived 4 minutes later. The passage contract has a clause about conducting business on board. It is one of the very few they enforce on a first offense. His 7-night humidor pass, $190, bought on embarkation day, was canceled and is not refundable. On the way out, the bartender handed him back his own cards, collected off 9 tables in a stack. 9. Take 6 went like this. The door of the forward lounge on deck 15 opens. A woman comes through with her arms already wide and delivers a gasp of pure wonder. The room holds 240 people. They have been sitting in the dark since 20 to 6, waiting for a glacier. Sierra and Devin had arrived with a ring light, 2 tripods, and a battery pack the size of a briefcase. The whole rig went up dead center of the glass. 60 people were now looking at the back of a light box. An officer came over early and whispered that this was a quiet viewing area. Devin put a hand up and told him he was standing in the shot. Then he offered to name the ship in the caption, as a thank you. The officer went away. The shoot did not. Sierra narrated what the ice had been teaching her about letting go. Devin decided the light wasn't finding her face. So he shouted the length of a silent room, telling her to come in more surprised. Hence the takes. On the 5th one, her arm came around too wide and caught her own tripod. The camera went down onto the carpet, and she held the gasp 2 more seconds before she looked. Which brings us back to take 6. A man near the window lost his spotting scope off its mount. It hit the floor, lens cap somewhere else entirely. That was the end of the negotiation. They were walked out at 6:51, both tripods folded under a crewman's arm. Sierra filmed the walk on her front camera, explaining that a ship this size needs somebody in charge of content. She offered, on the record, to consult. Nobody in the rig had thought about the schedule. A ship does not park at a glacier. It holds position off the face for a set window, usually about 40 minutes. Then it turns a slow 180, so the other side gets its turn and leaves. That view does not come back around. Their folio took $210 for the scope. The ship came about at 7:12 and had open water behind it by 1/2 The only footage on either card was 6 versions of a door. Not one of these people was drunk or dangerous. They were all just certain the room would adjust to them, and every single time the room sent an invoice instead. So here is the argument. Should a cruise line charge for noise the way it charges for damage? Tell me below. Like the video and subscribe if you want more of these.